One other thing that we've done is we've looked at AI. There's been a lot of talk about technology and artificial intelligence. So we invested in a company that uses artificial intelligence to detect one's cognitive health. And how it works is you look at a picture, say on an iPad, and you take about a minute or two to describe what's happening in that picture. And then what the tool does is it analyzes your cadence, how many times you pause, how descriptive your language is, and it can spit back for you your cognitive health. Are you on the path for dementia, Alzheimer's, suffering from schizophrenia, depression, PTSD, MS, on and on and on. It can decipher all of this. So in our senior living communities, this is great because it gives them some information on perhaps giving them some preventative care. There isn't a cure for dementia, so to speak, or Alzheimer's, but you can delay the onset if you do some preventative measures. But how we're using it right now, from a cost savings perspective, is depending on what state you're in, well, regardless of what state you're in the U.S., your residents have to undergo a cognitive test on a regular basis. At least every year, in many cases, it's every 3 months, because you have to be able to demonstrate that you are giving whoever your residents are the proper care. So how it works today is someone will come in, they'll have their clipboard, and they will interview the resident. And then based on how they interpret the responses, they deem the cognitive health of that person. Well, it's subjective, it's time-consuming, it's expensive. But we can use this type of tool to replace it, which would be objective, very quick, and really inexpensive. But when you put something like this in practice, it's not just as simple as that. The tool itself is phenomenal. And there's a formula that I follow, which is called Q times A equals E, which says the quality of the tool or the technology multiplied by its acceptance or adoption equals its overall effectiveness. So I knew the tool was great, but I needed to determine if it would be accepted in our senior living communities. So we rolled it out in a few different communities. And in one community in particular, in Holland, Michigan, the executive director of that community, at one of their regular community meetings, he was going through a laundry list of a whole bunch of different items they needed to discuss. And last on the list was this item about if anyone wanted to volunteer to be part of this program. And he got to the end, he kind of ran out of time, he almost forgot about it, and he just kind of as an offhanded remark, he said, we don't have enough time for this, but if you look in front of you at your table, there's a brochure on this new program. They're looking for volunteers to try out this new technology. If anybody's interested, come and see me later. And immediately after the meeting, one of the elderly women came up to him, and she had the flyer in her hand. She said, I'm reading this, and it says if I participate, I get $50. And he said, oh my gosh, you're right, it does. She looked at him and she said, you do realize we're all Dutch. And at that point, he was like, I should have led with that. They had so many people. So now I've learned that the Dutch are frugal from that. But in this case, one of the other things, too, that we're looking at is on the student side, because I mentioned we do a lot of stuff in student. And I hate to say it, but there's more stress and anxiety and depression and more suicide attempts, and unfortunately, suicides that are happening. We can actually use this tool to do a wellness check. And so we can have students, we're starting with students that are diagnosed as clinically depressed, actually do a wellness check. And they just talk to the picture, they explain what's happening in the picture. And you can't cheat the system. It's not like, are you a happy face today or a sad face today? It's going to know where you are. And then what would happen is it can flag, if there's some sort of a major episode, it can flag it for your counselor, your doctor, what have you. But what I wanted to end on, because this is the finance piece, and so a lot of the things we've talked about today are all the wonderful things, like if we're doing these healthy buildings, people are more productive, they sleep better, they feel better. That's great. I have to answer to my investors. I'm a fiduciary. So I don't want this to sound harsh, but they don't necessarily care on a lot of those things. What they care about is, am I getting more in rent? Is the occupancy filling up more? Is the tenure longer? Some of these things, is the property value going up? So what I'm trying to do is basically demonstrate that. And what I failed to mention in the beginning was a little bit of my background. I'm not a real estate professional. I don't come from that field. I'm a physicist. And so for me, everything has to really be measurable and quantitative. And so these are the types of things we're working. And fortunately at Harrison Street, we've had a formal ESG program since 2013. I assumed this role of Chief Impact Officer at the beginning of 2020. We have a full team that works on this. So we're doing a lot of this research, but I wanted to just, highlight these are some of the things that we're looking at to measure. We are talking to insurers. I think this was brought up in one of the talk just before here. We are starting to talk to insurers to say if we have healthy buildings, do we get a break, and some of those types of things, because I think that's where we're going. But we're doing this at the bottom line because we think it's the right thing to do for who we serve. Our seniors, our military families, our students, the people in our medical offices. That's why we're doing it. We're not doing this because there's a box to check or someone's coming down our throat, nor are we waiting for investors to tell us to do this. We're doing this because our key stakeholders have asked for this. We do a materiality survey, and the last time we did this, which was February of 2020. So keep that in mind, February of 2020. So something hadn't happened yet. And the results coming back from that, the top results were, first one was around climate risk and resiliency. Our key stakeholders wanted to make sure whatever we were investing in would be resilient to whatever Mother Nature was throwing at it. You had Australia burning. You had Germany being flooded. You had buildings in Florida falling into the ocean. Second thing was, we want to make sure that what we're investing in contributing to climate change. So carbon emissions reduction. We have a 2025 goal for a 70% carbon emissions reduction. Third was health and wellness. Somebody said this before, but I can give you a building that's net zero. I can give you a building that's resilient to anything Mother Nature will throw at it. But if I haven't taken into account the human element, it's just an empty shell. So that's why all of this is really important to us. And if anybody's interested, we wrote a whole climate action plan on all three of those things, addressing how it's on our website. It's publicly available if anybody's interested in that. With that, I will close. Thank you so much, Nils.
Thank you so much.